As hospitals, especially in New York, run out of vital equipment, we're seeing a frightening and heartbreaking front page of the New York Post today. Nurses resorting to trash bags for protection. New York Democratic Congressman Max Rose, representing Staten Island, the borough that has suffered so grievously already, serves the House Homeland Security Committee, as a military veteran, and joins me now. Congressman, thank you very much. You listened to the governor saying that the situation, as displayed by the New York Post, they've been assured by these hospitals they have enough protective gear for now. But he says that the increase is just so escalating so rapidly, They're going to need more. But what is the situation in your borough, in the state, and the way you are reacting to what the Senate did overnight?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. Look, the situation in my district, Staten Island and South Brooklyn, is one that we cannot be satisfied with. We need more PPE. We need more ventilators. Our staff, each and every day, our hospital staff, the nurses, the doctors, these are the frontline workers of this new war, and they are going to work each and every day and putting their lives on the line. You know, earlier this century, we had a debate as a country as to whether we should send soldiers to war without the equipment that they need. And we fought hard in the Senate, in Congress, so that when I deployed to Afghanistan, I did have the equipment we need. We can't wait for a 10-year debate on this. The federal government has got to act, and it has to start to see this as a rolling crisis. What New York is experiencing today, with an urgent need for ventilators, an urgent need for PPE and staff and hospital capacity, Louisiana, Florida, Tennessee, California could very well experience next month. This is a trial run for what the rest of the country will be experiencing, and we need help right now.
Well, there are two aspects that I wanted to ask you about first, because the president has still not implemented the Defense Protection Act, a Korea War-era act. And what we've seen now is that states are competing against states. States are trying to get foreign aid. States are competing against FEMA for some of this protective gear. And this has led to price gouging and price rises. What should the states and the governors, the mayors do to try to get the president to implement this act?
No, it's truly disgusting. This is dereliction of duty at this point. Right now, we have states and even countries competing with each other over these supplies that are really in short supply. So it's very simple what needs to happen. The federal government needs to assert all of its authority over this private marketplace, this private sector, to do a few things. First is to ramp up production. The second is to make sure that America is a preferred customer, as well as the states and municipalities most in need are the preferred customers. And then as the crisis moves on, those states and localities can support those who are currently in crisis. We're all in this together. And there's precedent for this in this country. We look at what we did in World War II, where the federal government stepped in and actually built factories that then the private sector ran. I fear that that's one of the issues at hand as well. The fact that so many of these private companies are saying, well, I'm not going to build a new factory because I don't know how long this demand is going to last, and I got to be concerned about my P&L. Screw your P&L. Okay, we have people that are dying, people that are in need. Federal government needs to step in and assert its authority. This is a wartime issue, and a wartime mobilization is what's needed.
Well, in that context, what about using the military? What about bringing a platoon in or a brigade into New York City to construct some of these field hospitals to take the weight off of the current hospitals and their ICUs?
Absolutely. Here's what I think needs to happen in New York City and in my congressional district, and I'm going to be very specific. About 9 days ago, I called on the U.S. Naval Hospital to come to New York Harbor. The president, Governor Cuomo, they got that done. I believe that that ship will be here in the next several weeks to reduce the capacity and the burden for non-COVID patients so our hospitals can focus on COVID. The second is that we have to look at New York City's only active duty base, Fort Hamilton, in my district, and deploy significant medical units there who can build field hospitals, again, for non-COVID patients. But how do we expand beds for COVID patients? One thing that we have to do, which we have not done nearly enough in New York State, is look at the VA system. The VA system can be expanded in New York City. I believe it should be expanded for non-veteran patients and to an institution that is almost solely focused on COVID patients, so we can manage the overflow. I've got 2 hospitals on Staten Island, 2 in South Brooklyn, in and around my district, that a week from now will not be able to bear the burden of its COVID patients. To use the VA system as an overflow opportunity will be absolutely essential. And lastly, the federal government and the military has resources it can send too. It has PPE, it has ventilators. It needs to focus on New York. New York, this is not a testing thing, okay? We have more people dying in New York, a disproportionate number, far more than any other city, any other state. We're the epicenter of the crisis. We need the military's help.
Now, we've got the package, which the House is going to vote on by voice vote tomorrow. But in an unprecedented live interview, something we haven't seen since 1987, the chairman of the Federal Reserve was live on the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie today about what the Fed is willing to do. I wanted to play that for you. It's part of it.
We can step in and replace that lending under our emergency lending powers, and we will do that. We will look wherever there is in the capital markets where credit is not flowing. We have the ability in this unique circumstance to temporarily step in. When it comes to this lending, we're not going to run out of ammunition. That doesn't happen.
He's saying it's not a blank check, but they're going to do whatever it takes.
Sure. Look, this makes the financial crisis 10 years ago or so look like chump change. If we thought quantitative easing then was significant, we need that 10x, 5x from what it was then, not just to support the private sector in terms of the corporate bonds, but also to support municipalities and states. This, I believe, will be the defining moments of this generation. We have got to rise to the challenge using all of the tools at our disposal: the Fed, the federal government, the military-industrial complex, our states, as well as the private sector. And they have to work in a synchronized fashion so as to deal with this now inevitable surge of COVID patients. Staffing, hospitals, ventilators, PPE. This isn't rocket science, okay? We need a strategy, resources, and solidarity. And I believe we as Americans, we can get this done. Greatest country in the history of the world, New York City, greatest city in the history of the world. We're going to get through this.
Max Rose, freshman congressman, Democratic congressman from Staten Island and Brooklyn, thank you so much. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you again.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.